Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to my masterclass this morning, which is all around claiming your financial independence. I had a number of people wanting to come along but couldn't make it live. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually still going to present the masterclass, and then I'm going to send it all out, send the replay out to all of you to listen at your leisure. So I hope you're all well and having a great week. It's still a bit overcast and rainy as per usual in Brisbane. So I hope you're all okay wherever you are. So I guess the first thing I wanted to chat to you about today is actually, what does financial independence mean to you? So that can mean a myriad of different things to different people, and from just really understanding basically what's going on with your money and finances, to actually really being in a position to, achieve your aspirations and goals in life. So, and everything in between. So I think it's really important to actually create that space and that time to be able to have a think of actually what does financial independence mean to you for yourself? If you're in a partnership, for your partner, what is that? What does that actually mean to you in your life? And, I know for myself, it's, a lot of that, it's, having that financial independence is around having that freedom and choice of how I want to live my life, how I want to spend my money, or what I want to spend my money on, and just basically, providing that freedom of, of what you want to do, but also choice around how you want to do it and, when you want to do it and that sort of thing. So I think that's the starting point is, instead of getting down to the nitty gritty really quickly, is to really sort of go high level and thinking, okay, well, what does this actually look like, to create that space and that time to have a look at what that looks like. And then, and then you can get down into the everyday, all right, well, how are we going to make this happen? And I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was, we're talking about, she's, looking at retiring in the next 5 years. And she said, she had that observation and awareness herself, that she was too busy down in the daily grind and nitty gritty, and causing her overwhelm and stress and anxiety about whether she was going to have enough to actually retire on. And then she actually, and we had a chat about it, and I said, why don't you just sort of take a step back and, have a look at the big picture of what you want your retirement to actually look like. And so she did that. And then she said, oh, wow. And it just, everything, the whole space just opened up to her. She realized that she is on track to be able to live her, to live her retirement years how she wants, what she wants to do, to be able to travel, all those sorts of things. But it wasn't until she, got away from the day-to-day busyness of trying to work it all out and, do your numbers and, what's, the grasping and grabbing of what's coming where and that sort of thing. And it wasn't until she actually stepped back that she was able to really have a good awareness of what is actually going on, and that she could actually achieve it. So I think that's, that's important. So I'm going to go through some things today to share with you about really, getting those, I talk a lot about really getting those financial foundations in place. I talk about really flexing that, financial capability muscle, particularly as women, that we don't necessarily have the understanding, the ability, the, even the know-how or the interest, even sometimes, or being ambivalent about our financial situation, stuff like that. So, there can be a lot of different reasons of not having that, not having that awareness and clarity and, interest around our money and finances, which I think is really vitally important, whether you're on your own, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're, newly separated, whatever the situation is. As women, it's really important to, have that understanding and have that awareness and that clarity, and which, then when leads on to being able to have our, our financial independence, be in a situation where you're never in a situation where your money and your finances or whatever is going on is stopping you from being able to make a decision, either to, to leave a relationship or to make a decision, or, whatever that is. I don't want any female at all to be in a position where they're not able to make those choices. Getting back to freedom and choice, but not able to make those choices because there's something around their money and finances, or their lack of understanding or knowledge, or all that sort of thing. So I think it's really important to get those financial foundations in place. I support a lot of women that have got, amazing businesses, and they're all over their finances and everything, and their money and what's going on, and the cash flow and everything in their businesses. But they're very removed, probably not a good word to explain, they're very removed around their personal finances. Either their partner is looking after their personal finances, or they just don't really, it just sort of all, works out in the wash, or they just don't have that clarity and that understanding around their personal finances. And I think I know that is a very big missing link of women with, because that's going to have an impact. My coach always says, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're not all over your personal finances, that will actually have an impact on your business. I did some work many years ago for someone who owned a franchise group, and I used to do some training for his new franchisees coming in, and he always said, if you don't have your personal finances and your personal relationships, if they're not sound, he said, you will fail in business. And I went, oh, that's a bit harsh when I first thought about it. But then when I actually really thought about it, I went, that's really, really true, because all those, if all that other stuff is going on in the background, that's going to take you out and take you away from, the success and prosperity of your businesses, and actually being able to show up fully in your business as well. So for women, a lot of, there's a big missing link around getting those financial foundations in place, being able to flex your financial capability muscle, and really understand what is going on. As I talk a lot about, pulling that curtain back and really shining the light on your finances, not just being able to have a bit of a brief understanding or overview. It's actually really to understand, what assets you've got, what debts you've got, what financial structures you've got, everything. And, when I support women in my coaching programs, they actually need to come back and explain to me what's going on with their finances, explain to me what investments they've got, explain to me their debt situations and how it's structured, and, all those sorts of things. Because once they can explain that to me, I know that they've got that understanding and that real, capability around, talking about, they're financially capable, they're financially aware, they're financially knowledgeable about what's going on. Because, I guess on the flip side of that, I've heard, a number of stories and spoken to women that, had very successful businesses. This is this is potentially what could happen if you don't have that, that financial awareness and capability, is that, they had really fantastic businesses, but they had really absolved any responsibility, accountability, awareness around their personal finances, had signed, numerous things that around their finances that they didn't actually really fully understand what they were signing. And then, if the relationship broke down, they found out that money had been withdrawn from their superannuation, that there was very complex financial structures in place that wasn't particularly complementary for them. And the thing is, though, that they'd been complicit in actually this because they'd signed these documents to allow this to happen. And in some cases, it had a massive impact to them personally. But then, because their businesses were often tied into the whole mix, had a big impact on their businesses being able to go ahead and function and that sort of thing. So that's what can happen if you actually don't get on top of all this stuff and have that financial independence. And, we hear, there's a lot of, information in the media about these women in their 60s and 70s that are actually basically homeless. And if you look back and, follow the breadcrumbs back, a lot of times this is, it would have been around this sort of stuff. So I guess, my mission is to prevent that from ever happening. Number one, to prevent women to actually have that financial independence, understand what's going on with their finances, feel empowered and control around their money, but then also, the flow and effects that preventing any of that from actually happening. So that's my sort of my introduction to why I'm so, really focused on actually women claiming their financial independence. But I guess, then you have to say, well, that's all well and good. Actually, how do I do it? What do I need to do? What do I need to know? What things do I need to put in place to be able to actually have that, be able to state my claim for financial independence. So that's what I want to run through and share with you this morning around some strategies, some steps. We're going to touch a little bit on, I can never not touch a little bit on around our mindset and our money stories and beliefs. We're going to talk a little bit about blocks. So let's get into it and see how we go. And I'd love for anyone that is interested in catching up and having a chat, I'll have a bit more of a chat to you about that at the end. So the first section I wanted to really talk to you about is really getting clear, knowing your numbers. And one of my favorite sayings is knowing where your money goes gives you freedom and choice around where you want it to go. So it's not about making it right or wrong or good or bad or having these really strict budgets and not being able to enjoy life or anything like that. It's just understanding once you actually have that understanding of where and what your money where it's going, what's happening with it, where it's being spent, all those sorts of things, you are then in a position to make some very educated, informed decisions about where and what you want where that money to go. But it's not until you find this out that you're able to be able to put the second, bit in place. So things that you need to think about in this situation is really, first of all, is to actually make friends with your bank account. And I know that sounds a bit funny, but absolutely no judgment here. I know a lot of women that if I ask them what's going on with their bank accounts or what their bank account structures are, they very openly, honestly say to me, Melissa, I actually don't know. I don't know. I might just have a credit card that I use, or my husband looks after it, or whatever it is, which is, that seems to be fairly normal. I want you to go and actually be able to log in to your bank accounts, see what's going on, see what bank accounts you have in place, have a look at the flow of funds, all that sort of thing. So it's really about, making friends with your bank account. And I'd just love to share as you know, I love sharing a story, but sharing a story about a client of mine. She went back and actually started having a look at her bank statements. And by looking at one statement, she actually found and reclaimed $4,000, which was like, she was very, very happy. But what had happened is they'd sold an investment property about 7 years ago, thought that everything had been wound up and cancelled and paid out and stuff like that. And what had happened is that no one somehow was forgotten to cancel the mortgage insurance on this property. And it just kept being charged for 7 years. And when she checked her statement, from us having that discussion around the bank accounts and statements, she saw this coming out, contacted the bank, and then went, oh wow, sorry. And $4,000 just refunded to her there and then on the spot. So that's the other benefit of it. If apart from understanding actually what's going on, is you could actually find money. Another thing is, people sign up to make contributions and donations to charity and stuff like that, which is all fine. But a lot of times you've forgotten that you're actually doing that, and then it's sort of going up and doing I talk about doing a personal financial audit is actually to go through and make sure you understand everything that's going on and everything that's coming in and going out. So first of all, make friends with your bank account. Then get a lot of clarity and understanding about how much do you have coming in. Do you know what's coming in from different sources, from a business, from your job, from your partner, from your investments, from Centrelink, from child support, anything that you've got coming in. Do you know what's coming in? Do you know how often it's coming in? All those sorts of things. You really need to understand the flow of money actually coming into your money pot, to understand what you've got to actually work with. And also on the other side of that, do you understand what you've got going out? Do you actually understand what your, financial commitments are? And as there's a lot of talk about that at the moment of, I just noticed, that the cost of living is really increasing at the moment. And I think one of, the great examples is I was blown away when I saw the petrol price the other day. It was $2.15 or something like that. And, the cost of groceries, because the fruit and veggies are hard to source, and, from the floods. And, there's a lot of extra costs involved in actually just running a household at the moment, which is, even more important to actually have that understanding and really, really know what's going on. So, do you understand what your financial commitments are? And I'm going to break those down a little bit more in a sec as well. Do you know what you own? That's a really interesting thing. Have you ever sat down and actually worked out what you own, what actually makes up your asset pool? And it can be really, really interesting when you actually look at that and, think a bit outside the square of what you actually own. I had some young clients that I was supporting a while ago, and we were sitting down and doing this, and the fellow had these magic cards that he used, and he used to go and play with them and trade them and stuff like that. And they were just, all over the place and just lying around, that sort of thing. And he sat down and actually valued them, and they were actually worth, when he sort of looked at them, because he'd been collecting them for a while, they're actually worth thousands of dollars, to the point where they actually insured them as a standalone item. And the next time I went over and saw them, they were all beautifully put away in packets and locked away in a cupboard and stuff like that. So it's, really interesting to understand, what makes up your asset pool. The other really important aspect that I always talk to people about is, do you understand what you owe? Do you understand what your debts how they're structured? Are your debts as efficient as they possibly can be? And when I talk about that, I'm talking about, when I talk about debts being as efficient as possible, are you paying the lowest or least amount of interest than you possibly can on those debts? So, there might be something to look at to review your debt situation, all those sorts of things, just to make sure that you're, all the money you're paying towards the debts, the bulk of it is actually paying down the loan or the capital or the debt balance, as opposed to just servicing interest. And I know a lot of people get into that, that vicious cycle with credit cards, where you just, just maintaining the minimum payment every month and never really getting in front with, credit cards and personal debt and that sort of thing. So there's lots of different strategies that I work with and look at for people. And, and if they need to go and, have a chat with a mortgage broker or do a review, we can do that as well. But there's, it's really important to understand actually what you owe and how efficient are they. So just when we're getting back to our financial commitments, I just wanted to sort of talk to you about two areas of our financial commitments and, things you can look at doing to get those, to really get their financial foundations rocking and rolling and in place. So first of all is actually talking about your fixed costs. So when I talk about fixed costs, I'm talking about anything that you pay on a regular ongoing basis and is usually about the same amount. So it doesn't matter how often you pay it. So it could be weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, annually. So it doesn't matter the time in between that you pay them, but that they're coming up, and they're usually the big ticket items. So things like your rent or your mortgage, body corporate, council rates, your utilities, your insurances, your phone and internet, all the streaming services, loan repayments, all the children's, school fees, childcare, extracurricular activities, transport, if you, pay on, have a regular amount on, tolls or petrol or that sort of thing. So it's actually really doing a review of your fixed costs. So what I suggest to people is actually sit down and write out all your fixed costs, find out what the amount that you're paying on them, how often they're paid. And then basically what I do is to go through with people and actually look at, can they be reviewed or not? Because some of our fixed costs can't be reviewed. Obviously, if you own a home, you can't review your council rates. I live in a townhouse, so I can't review my body corporate fees. If you own a car, you can't review your registration on your car. So quite a few of our fixed costs we can't review, but there's a lot of them that we can review and make sure that they're as efficient as possible. So go through and do a list of the ones you can and can't review. A lot of the ones that are good to review are your utilities, your phone and internet, your insurances, particularly your private health insurance. I tend to get a lot of savings with my clients through that. All those sorts of, fixed costs. is to go through and review them. So once you've worked out what you can review, people always say to me, Melissa, I know I should review them, but I don't have hours to sit down and ring all the different providers, and I don't know whether I'm sort of, comparing apples with apples or apples with oranges. Absolutely, totally understand. And what I usually say to people is, most of the time you just need to make one phone call, and that is to your current provider. You ring them up and let them know you're doing a review, and that you're having a look around of your, your cover or your plan or your policy or whatever you've got with them. Now, I can't 100% say that they're going to give you some, offer you some incentive to stay with them, but a lot of times they will, because they, they value you as a client. They want to keep you as a client and that sort of thing. So a lot of times they will offer you some incentive to stay with them, and that's all you need to do. Bang, you've got some, some saving. Now, if you don't have any luck with them, or you actually want to go and have a look at it, compare and contrast around the marketplace, there are organisations that can help you with that. So if anyone wants to know some assistance with that, I've got some contacts I can help you with. So it's and they will help you, particularly with things that are, like private health insurance that are really, really complicated. They can go through it and just walk you through the process and have a look at what cover you've got, what you want covered, and then perhaps suggest an alternative cover, or maybe that you might be with the best cover. So they just do a compare of what you're doing, what you've got. So that can make a really, really, just even going through and reviewing your fixed costs can make a really significant difference to making your cash flow as efficient as possible, because every time you save a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, that is freeing up cash flow for you to do something else with. Now, that's up to you, obviously, what you want to do with it, whether you just want to have it in the pot for lifestyle, or whether you want it to, you've got some goals to reduce debt, build up your cash reserves, put away money for holidays now that we can, put away money for children's education, build your wealth, whatever that might be. You've got, you've freed up cash flow to be able to do that. And obviously your fixed costs are as efficient as possible as well. So, and there's just two other points I wanted to add with reviewing your fixed costs, is obviously making what you're paying as efficient as possible, but also making sure that what you've got in place, your policy or plan or whatever it is, best reflects your current circumstances. I'll use my personal example, as I reviewed my private health insurance in the last couple of years, because I kept getting those very regular letters saying your premium is increasing, and it got to the point where I actually I couldn't afford to pay the level that they were saying. So I went and reviewed my private health insurance. Not only did I significantly reduce my premium back down to a level that was manageable for me, but I actually changed my level of cover to better reflect what I wanted covered for myself and my kids, which was a lot narrower. But then when I go and claim now, I get a better payout on because it's just it's a narrower cover of actually what I want covered. So that's another important area when you're reviewing your fixed costs. The other area is to make sure, this is, along the insurance line as well, make sure what you think you've got covered and think you're paying for is actually what you actually have covered. I find that a lot when we talk with clients, when looking at their contents insurance, they might have particular events that they think that they've got covered. And when we go and look at their contents insurance, they realize that they don't. So there is nothing worse than something happening in your life, thinking that you're covered, and you go to claim or put in a claim and you find out you're not covered. So once again, just having that, having that awareness and that understanding of what's going on. So then obviously you've got this, you've got the decision to put them in place or not put them in place. So yeah, a lot of benefit by going through and reviewing fixed costs. And that's a big area that I support my clients on when we're working together. The other part of our financial commitments is our discretionary or our lifestyle spending. So lifestyle spending is pretty much anything that's not a fixed cost. And every time you walk out the door and put your hand in your pocket or your wallet, that is a lifestyle cost. So, it's groceries, it's coffees, eating out, entertainment, personal grooming, children, all those sorts of things are actually what we call lifestyle spending. Now, what I suggest with people is to actually track their lifestyle spending for 30 days obviously you can do it more if you want, but just to really understand. I'm actually doing it at the moment this month because I just need to get some, clarity around what I need to generate in my business to cover off my, I know my fixed costs, they're, set in stone, but to cover off, just getting a little bit of an understanding of what I'm spending on, what I'm spending on groceries and lifestyle and the kids and that sort of thing. So is to track your spending for 30 days. And then, as I said, purely because a lot of people go, oh, I couldn't do that. They don't want to know what they're spending on lifestyle and stuff like that, which is really interesting. So it's the area that I probably get the most resistance from with clients. And it's probably the most liberating and empowering exercise people do to actually understand where and what they're spending their money on. Because as I said in the start, once you know that, you can make a conscious decision of where and what you want to spend your money on. And so, for example, with your fixed costs, once they're done, reviewed, they're done, they're set in stone. But our lifestyle spending, we have a lot more flexibility around what's going on, where and what we're spending money on. So it's not about doing a strict budget. It's not about doing scorched earth. It's not about having any, stopping doing anything. Very much what I do with my clients is actually to get an understanding of what's important to have for them for lifestyle spending. So whether that's money for a holiday, whether that's money for a date night once a week, whether that's, getting a takeaway on a Friday night, whatever that might be, what's important to them is making sure there is money available to cover that. So that's why, understanding where and what you're spending your money on. So it's not about denying yourself. It's more about making sure that there is money available for what you want to spend money on. So what's important for your lifestyle. So I suggest that you, a really good exercise is to track your lifestyle spending in live for 30 days. There's lots of different ways you can do it. You've got apps on your phone. You can keep your FPOS receipts. You can put it in an Excel spreadsheet. I use the ASIC Money Smart Budget Planner to do. I've got one with my fixed costs and one with my lifestyle spending. Then I've got another one with my business fixed costs. So the ASIC Money Smart Budget Planner is a fantastic resource. You can either use it online or you can download it to an Excel spreadsheet to use. So it doesn't really, it's a path of least resistance with regards to how you do it. And then you can have a look at the data at the end of the month. And obviously if you've got a couple doing it, really important to, get together perhaps once a week. I suggest you get together for like a money date and put your information in together, combine or collate your information together, perhaps in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. And the beauty of that, I find, is that, you're coming together to put the money, collate your data. And as it is just data, try and do it without having all the emotional attachment around where and what you're spending your money on. Just purely look at it as a data gathering exercise. Really, really important. But getting back to, money dates is that, you get coming together to collate that information, but because you've created that space and that time to do it, it creates this, opportunity to actually talk about other stuff. And that's what I see happening is that, you start talking about, what your aspirations and goals and what's going on with money and what you're wanting to do and, all that sort of stuff. So it's actually, creating that space and that time to be able to have money conversations, which are really, really important, particularly as a couple. So yeah, track your lifestyle spending for 30 days. Do it as purely as a data gathering exercise and just have a look at where and what you're spending your money on. And then once you have that understanding, you can go, okay, well, we spend this much on, let's take away. All right, well, we probably don't need to spend that much on takeaways. So why don't we just make sure we've got we like doing takeaway on a Friday night, at the end of the week, make sure that we've got enough, that there is money available for takeaway. And then if we, whatever's there, we can actually direct that to something else or pay, we want to pay down this credit card over here. All right, why don't we just make sure we've got that for takeaway on a Friday night and use the excess to pay down a credit card. So, there's all sorts of things. And obviously that's what's in, it's a very individual scenario of what's important to you and what's not important to you. But it's, it can be life-changing. It can be really empowering, understanding what is going on with your money and, both on the what's coming in, what's going out, what you own, what you owe, all those different areas. it's, once you know that information, it is liberating, it's empowering. You know exactly what's going on, and it doesn't, you don't have to be doing it every single minute of every single day and talking to your partner about every single decision being made. It's just actually having that, having that openness, having that understanding, that you're, and, having that involvement, which is the most important thing, particularly as women, that, the awareness, the clarity, the understanding of actually what's going on. So it's not this fearful little thing over, little big thing over here in the darkness that you don't really understand what's going on, which causes fear, causes anxiety, causes overwhelm, all those sorts of things. And once, so once you bring it out into the light, as I said, pull that curtain back and shine the light on your finances and your money and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't have that hold over you anymore. It doesn't have that power or that, that pull, because, it just doesn't, there's no attachment to it anymore, because you know what's going on. Now, I mean, a lot of times, particularly with the cost of living and stuff like that, might not look great, but you've got a starting point, where you are. And then once you know where you are, you've got the ability to move forward. Another favorite saying I've got is, the best map in the world is no good if you don't know where you are. And so this is really about doing this financial audit, is really about understanding, where you are, what's going on, and when then you're able to move forward and put in place, what your aspirations, goals, strategies, wealth creation, paying down debt, whatever that might be, you can actually make very conscious decision and educated and informed decisions around that. So really important to look at, those aspects of your financial foundations. The other section I want to touch on a little bit is just talking about really getting efficient. Structure is king, and I've referred to it a couple of times talking already, but the question I ask all my clients is, do you know if your current scenario helps you or hinders you to manage your money? So, is the flow of funds into your bank accounts, around your bank accounts, out the other side, is it really, seamless and streamlined and automated? Or is it really clunky with lots of human involvement? And I always find the more, myself included, the more human involvement, the more clunky it is, and the less likelihood things get done and stuff like that. So, and it's not a cookie cutter approach. There's not a one size fits all. There's certain strategies that I do with myself and I do with a lot of my clients that they find really fantastic. It's not about shoving all your finances together or having them all separate. It's just sitting down and talking very individually to each person around, is it helping you or hindering you to manage your money? So, there's things about looking at, reviewing your bank accounts, as I've always talked about, reviewing your debt situation, and perhaps looking up at setting up separate, accounts to have your fixed costs coming out of. There's all sorts of different scenarios to look at there, which is all part of getting these financial foundations in place and flexing your capability muscles. So really, really important stuff there to have a look at. So what I want to do now is just, drop down a few gears, a few cogs, and actually talk about our money mindset. So this is, I talk about getting real, wealth is an inside job. So what I've found and what I know to be very, very true, both from personal experience and working with my clients and supporting them, is it doesn't matter, as important as, doing that financial audit, flexing your financial capability muscle, doing all this stuff, putting all this stuff in place. If you don't understand what the motivations and behaviors that is driving our behavior around our, I'm talking about your relationship with money, your money stories, beliefs, all those sorts of things, whatever you've put in place in your external world, in external environment, or the tangible, cash flows, budgets, whatever you want to call it, that will not be sustainable, because this stuff will keep coming in and pushing you out. So it's really important to get all that in place. First of all, which is what I do with my clients, but then it's actually what that's doing is freeing up the space to go and actually have a look at this money money behavior, or our relationship with money, and what's driving our motivations and behaviors around our relationship with money. Because if we don't look at that, nothing will be sustainable that we put in place, because that'll keep coming and knocking us out, because we still don't quite understand what's going on. So a really very big part of what I do is talking about our money mindset, which is our money stories, our money beliefs. Do we have any money blocks around money? Which we all do, by the way. And it's just, and working through, having that awareness around our money stories, then actually seeing if, and our money beliefs, are there any money blocks that we need to look at, or our beliefs that, may not even be true, that we've inherited, and, all those sorts of things. So really, really important to look at those different areas. So just wanted to, give you a little bit of background about our money, because people go, okay, great. Well, how do I work this out? What do I do? How do I find out my money story? How do I find out if I have any beliefs and blocks around my relationship with money? How do I actually find that out? So just to go back a little bit, our beliefs are formed, our money stories are formed by about the age of 7, when what we call our, theta brainwave mode, when we take everything like a little sponge with no filter. So when they talk about kids being little sponges, it's actually true. And what happens is these are the set of rules or guidelines that we've told our subconscious that we want to live by. So do everything in its power to keep them real and keep them real and keep them safe. And then as we get older, they get further reinforced with every experience and interaction we have, and then get further ingrained as our core beliefs. Now, the problem is, as you can imagine, if we've taken all these on when we're little people, that, a lot of these are not serving us and may not even be true. So it's very much, our job, but can be having as I was saying before, can be having a really big impact of what's going on in our adult life. So it's, it's our job to identify any negative beliefs and blocks that maybe, having around money, and really, challenge them, or challenge them, the ones that aren't actually serving us anymore, or actually might even true, even true in the first place. So it's really talking about, breaking that cycle or pattern that we might have with money. And, a lot of people say to me sometimes, Melissa, I feel like I've got this really unhealthy relationship with money, but I can't quite put my finger on it. That's very much talking about our money mindset. Or that, I feel like I'm in this pattern or this cycle with money. It doesn't matter what I put in place, how many spreadsheets I set up or whatever it happens. It doesn't continue. I just can't seem to get off that wheel of that pattern or cycle or loop. So that's very much our money mindset that's driving that behavior as well. So first of all, just want to share with you, the first thing that I do with people is do a really big deep dive into actually what their money stories are. Just want to share with you some, high level questions around that to have a think about of what's in, what they might be for you. So first of all is, how do you feel when you think about money? What's your immediate feeling, and where do you feel it in your body, and what's the emotion attached to it? Secondly, how would you describe your current relationship with money? That's a really interesting one. Most of the times we love it when we've got it. We don't like it when we don't have it. So, there can be a lot energetically going on there with that push and that pull with regards to our relationship with money and how we feel about it. Probably one of the most important questions to have to think about is how money was spoken about when you're growing up. And I will challenge anyone that how money was spoken about when we're growing up is not having some impact and not showing up somewhere in our adult life, either in relation to our direct relationship with money, how we spend it, how we interact with it, how we feel about it. It might be showing up in our personal relationships, or it might be showing up in our professional life, either, if we're employed, or showing up in our business, all those sorts of areas. Or, as I've experienced, all three. I've got the trifecta. I've experienced all three. So, but it will be showing up somewhere. So it's really important to have a look at that. And it's not about going back and blaming your parents if it's, if it's not exactly how it wants to be. It's just having that awareness, and that, there's a lot of, when I work with clients, there's a lot of aha moments about, right, now I get it. Now I see why this is showing up for me, what, and the reasons why, and that sort of thing. So it's a really interesting exercise to have a look at. And obviously, once you have that realization, that awareness, you can do something about it. What was your mother's relationship with money? What was your father's relationship with money? And even what was your grandparents' relationship with money? And if you don't know, go back and have a chat to them about it. Have a lovely conversation around it to ask them, because most of our money stories and beliefs are handed down through our family of origin. Because that's, obviously that's where we hang out the most, particularly when we're little people. So really important to understand, what's going on there with our family of origin and that sort of thing. And so once we have that understanding, we can really unpack that. As I said, we can see where that's showing up in our lives, and we can do something about clearing if there are some beliefs that are not serving us, or that we're not available for, or are not even true. We can actually sort of, I go through quite an exercise of reframing our beliefs, and that involves a lot about our thought processes, what we think, what comes out of our mouth, all that sort of stuff, because there's quite a pattern or a cycle with regards to where we hold these beliefs. We hold them obviously in our subconscious. Then an external event or person or interaction will trigger one of those beliefs. We'll go up into our thoughts, create an emotional response, and then voila, you have your reality. And that can be either a positive experience or a negative experience, and then goes back in and solidifies or ingrains those beliefs again. So it's really about breaking that, that cycle. And the place that we can do that is actually at our thoughts. It's very, very powerful with regards to actually, reframing our thoughts, reframing what comes out of our mouth, all those sorts of things. It's been proven scientifically now that we can actually, change our neural pathways and that sort of thing through doing this, doing some of this work. So, really understanding what's going on with our money beliefs, eliminating, reframing them, whatever needs to be done. And then really, the great thing after you've done that is it opens up this whole space. And like what I like to say, it's, it frees up that, that mental real estate, because we're not thinking about all the time about what's going on with our money. We're not being, being impacted by our money thoughts and beliefs and, all that sort of stuff. And it really, what I call it, frees up that mental real estate then to sort of think, okay, well, I know what I don't want. So actually, what do I want? So that's what are your visions and aspirations for now and for the future? And what I talk to people about is, if there was no barrier of time, money, or skills, what would your greatest life look like, and what would be possible? So it's really talking about moving from that, that probability vector. If you keep doing the same thing, you'll probably keep getting the same result. So moving that probability vector into the possibility vector, which is, which can be really exciting and amazing. And, it's really about thinking big and thinking outside the square, because the thing is, we spend so much time thinking about what we don't want, or what we don't have enough of, or what we're missing out on, and that sort of thing. That's actually where our focus is going. You hear these sayings where our focus goes, our energy flows, or our thoughts create our reality, all that sort of thing. So imagine if you were not thinking about what all the negative stuff that's going on, or you don't have, and all that sort of thing. Imagine if you're thinking about, well, what would be possible? What do I want in my life? What do I want to bring into my life? What do I want to attract into my life? So if you're focusing your energies over to that space instead, what could show up? And, there's a lot of talk about, having gratitude for what you've got, feeling that, living in that joy and love and abundance space. The high energy, high frequency, that sort of thing. A lot of people call it above the line, instead of being that, below that line, and that scarcity and that lack, and what you're missing out on, and all that sort of stuff in that very negative, below the line thoughts and behaviors and stuff like that. So, don't underestimate the power of all that side of things. It's really, I do a lot of work. I've done a lot of work with that on myself personally. around my relationship with money and what was going on and that sort of thing, and also supporting a lot of women around that to really, fully step up into their power, and, obviously to reclaim, to claim or reclaim their financial independence, but actually really, to stop playing small and to be able to actually have no obstacles in the way to actually holding them back. And a lot of this mindset, money beliefs and mindset can be playing, they have a big impact on that, because, my final saying that I love is I come in on the money, but it's never just about the money. And, there's a lot, the money is the effect, or our relationship with money or how it's showing up in our lives is the effect. I'm very interested in actually going back and having a look at what the cause is behind that. And a lot of that is around our our personal identity. It's around our self-worth. It's around, all that sort of stuff. And it's actually, that's how it's, showing up, is around our relationship with money. So there can be a lot underneath the surface around our mindset and our relationship with money and all those sorts of things. So really important to have a look at, what's going on with that. I just wanted to finish with a few thoughts around, what people go, well, what sort of money blocks can we actually have, or things that we, sayings and stories. So, things like, money doesn't grow on trees, just like really little sayings that you grew up with. Money doesn't grow on trees, or money is the root of all evil, or you can't be a good person and have money. So imagine if you've grown up with a belief that to be a good person, you can't be a good person and have money. So if you've grown up with that belief all your life, obviously you're going to actually you're going to do everything in your power until you clear that belief or reframe it. You're going to be, subconsciously doing everything in your power to repel money, because you actually want to be considered a good person. So it's a really interesting thing. And some of the money blocks can be, is actually bartering to the universe about, okay, well, if you're going to, I'll do this if you do that, or I'll do that, I'll give up that if you give me this. That's actually blocking the flow of money and that sort of thing. It's, sending a really mixed messages to what you're wanting to do. I'm saying that you want X, but you actually will be just happy with Y, all those sorts of things. So it's to be really clear about what you're wanting to do and actually send it, and actually say that that's what you want. Picking, working out those aspirations, working out those goals, all those sorts of things. Another money block can be actually being, it sounds funny, but being too generous with other people to the detriment of yourself. So, that doing it out of, being a martyr, or, what you're getting out of it, those sorts of things. And, there might be another thing, looking at that is actually, looking at practicing receiving instead of actually just always giving, is actually learning to receive. And I know as women, that can be a really tricky thing sometimes. Overindulging, spending money that we don't have on things that we don't necessarily want, all that sort of stuff, is having a look at actually, not making it right or wrong or good or bad, but actually having a look at what's going on with regards to that. And, a big thing around financial independence is actually giving your power away to other situations, people, relationships, all those sorts of things. Can have a big impact on what's going on. And the final one is actually choosing who you surround yourself with. Like if you surround yourself with people with, a very much a scarcity and lack, and that what we call a poverty mindset, people that just like whinge and bitch and moan about money and about their lives and how terrible it is, and, all that sort of stuff. Just be careful who you choose to be around. And I know myself, it's far greater to be around people that are positive and fantastic and in that abundance and abundance mindset. It can be, it can make a big difference to how you're feeling and how you're showing up and stuff like that. So just be aware of some of those things that might be going on for you. And if any of them are, if you think, oh, wow, that, 100% that's me. Look, just have that awareness. Love to catch up and, have a chat with you about it, chat through about it. And And that's, that sort of brings me on to closing this. I will be sending the replay out to everyone that was interested, or just going to send the replay out to everyone because that's what I want to do. If you are interested in having a chat about your personal circumstances or your situation, would love to support you there, even if it's just to catch up for initial chat or potentially to work together and support you or whatever that is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my link to book in a discovery session with me below. I'll include the link in below to for you to be able to do that. But yeah, just really love to, if you are not feeling like you're, that you feel like you're in, flexing that financial capability muscle, that, feel that you're not really, getting that, feeling that financial independence and you really want to, yeah, just really love to catch up, support you in any way that I can to make sure that that is the case and that you are looking at really flexing that financial capability muscles. So take care, everyone. I hope you enjoy the session, and please reach out if you need to. Okay, take care. Bye.